There's a new report out by the Justice Department's Inspector General on how much money the DEA has taken in from the civil asset forfeiture program. And boy, is it a big number. According to the Washington Post, the DEA takes billions of dollars in cash from people who are never charged with criminal activity. So that's, of course, the problem with civil asset forfeiture is you actually don't need to charge anybody with a crime. All you have to do is say, we believe that something shady was happening on your property, somebody who had possession of pot in your house, so now we're going to take your house. Because we believe that whoever had the marijuana or whatever might have been dealing from that house, or this house somehow was involved in a crime, or you get pulled over and there's money in your car. Oh, look at that. I'm just going to take your money. So that's the whole problem with civil asset forfeiture. But again, the number of how much money it is taken from these people, the government has, through this program is just staggering. Since 2007, the report found the DEA has seized more than $4 billion in cash from people suspected of involvement with drugs, but 81% of those seizures, totaling $3.2 billion, were conducted administratively, meaning no civil or criminal charges were brought against the owners of the cash, and no judicial review of the seizures ever occurred. That's just with drugs. And think about that. 81% of people were not charged with a crime, and yet they had their money stolen anyway. This is theft. This is, like, you want to talk about taxation is theft, right? No, this is theft. This is straight up theft. Hey, we're just going to come take your money because we believe that you're involved in drugs. And this is just cash, as I said before. It doesn't include the dollar value of any sort of other assets like cars, homes, electronics, and clothing. In fact, now they found that, quote, the Inspector General found the Department of Justice does not collect or evaluate the data necessary to know whether its seizures and forfeitures are effective or to the extent to which seizures present potential risks to civil liberties. Now, I would say that this would violate the Fourth Amendment. Now, apparently, the government does not agree, since this seems to be a legal part of the war on drugs. But if you ask me, this is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. This is search and seizure of people's property. And it doesn't matter if it has anything to do with drugs. You can't just go and take people's stuff. But that's exactly what they're doing. Now, let me give you some details about what this report says. Now, the report examined 100 DEA cash seizures that occurred without a court-based warrant and without the presence of narcotics, the latter of which would provide strong evidence of related criminal behavior. Fewer than half of those seizures were related to a new ongoing criminal investigation or led to an arrest or prosecution. When seizure and administration forfeitures do not ultimately advance an investigation or prosecution, the report concludes, law enforcement creates the appearance or risks the reality that is more interested in seizing and forfeiting cash than advancing or an investigation or prosecution. Meaning that the entire purpose is just to go and take your stuff. That is hugely problematic. You don't need an investigation. You don't need criminal proceedings. And to go in and take somebody's money. And look, oftentimes these people don't get their money back. Now, in fact, I'm going to go and get to that in a minute here. But first, the scope of this program and how much it seizes is just staggering. Since 2007, the Department of Justice Assets Forfeiture Fund, which collects proceeds from seized cash and other property, has ballooned to $28 billion. In 2014 alone, authorities seized $5 billion in cash and property from people, greater than all the value of all documented losses to burglary that year. And in most of the seizures, examined by the IG, DEA officers initiated encounters with people based on whether they met certain criteria. Now, this criteria included traveling to or from a known source of city for drug trafficking. That seems rather light because you could say a lot of cities are places where you would have drug trafficking. Ooh, and you're going to Chicago. I hear there's a lot of gang and drug activity up there. Better check you. Better seize your assets and see whether or not you're involved in that drug trade. That's disastrous. Not only that, but purchasing a ticket within 24 hours of travel, purchasing a ticket for a long flight with an immediate return, purchasing a one-way ticket, and traveling without checked luggage. So again, that is some rather broad definitions. Now, some of the encounters were also based on tips from confidential sources working with the travel industry, so you can't trust your flight attendant or the person that you get a ticket from, a number of whom have received large sums of money in exchange for cooperation. In one case, the officers targeted an individual for questioning on a tip from a travel industry informant that the individual had paid for a plane ticket with a prepaid debit card and cash. Because nobody does that, right? Because maybe some people don't have an actual debit card from a bank. Maybe they like working in prepaid cash or prepaid debit cards. Or maybe they actually just prefer cash. Some people do. Some people don't want to carry around a card. But hey, that's enough to get you flagged if somebody calls in and then gets paid for it while you get your stuff taken. Now, look, in light of all this information that basically says that the DEA can come in and take people's stuff, but in most cases or in many cases, there's no investigation, there's no criminal proceedings, there's nothing. Well, why don't people fight back? Well, that's a good question. Now, it turns out that many people can't. According to the Post, there's no right to an attorney in forfeiture proceedings, meaning defendants must foot the bill themselves. Now, look, if the government takes your money, well, then what money do you have to go and get your stuff back, to get your money back, right? And generally, since this is involved in the war on drugs, you have a lot of people that simply are poor and are minority and don't have the money to be able to go and hire a lawyer to fight back. And in other cases, the amount of money that's forfeited is so small that it's actually not worth hiring a lawyer to go to court to fight for. Now, they also explain that forfeiture cases are legally complex and difficult for individuals to win. And what's interesting is that forfeiture cases are not brought against the person. They're actually brought against a property. Now, this leads to really weird names for these cases. For example, one was titled United States versus $8,850 in U.S. currency. There's another case that was called United States of America versus one men's Rolex Pearl Master watch. If that is not effed up, I don't know what is. We're going to bring a criminal proceeding against your watch so that we can now seize it and sell it. Insanity. Complete insanity. Now, another difference is forfeiture proceedings basically start from the presumption of guilt. We seized your assets because we believe that it was used in some sort of illicit deal. So we believe your stuff is guilty. That is completely different than, of course, individuals, which the presumption is, of course, no, you're innocent. And now that means individuals who fight forfeiture must prove their innocence in court, not the other way around. They don't. So it's really hard to win a forfeiture. So that's the problem here. Now, the IG's report also found, however, related to that those people who do often get at least a portion of their cash returned, only 1/5 of people who had their cash seized by the DEA disputed seizures in court. But among those who contested the seizure, nearly 40% ended up getting all or some of their cash returned, suggesting that the DEA's forfeiture net ensnares many individuals not involved in wrongdoing. Well, that's what I've been saying all along. This is too broad. This is way too broad. And it gives way too much power to the police state. Way too much power to these organizations. And by the way, again, I keep mentioning that this is driven by the drug war. Why is marijuana illegal? It should not be illegal. In fact, look, I would decriminalize all drugs. I know that sounds like a radical position. But look, in places where they have decriminalized drugs, Portugal is a great example. You've actually had less people doing drugs. For some reason, it's less of an incentive. And it allows people to get help if they become addicted to drugs. But again, marijuana is one of the main drugs that people are busted with. Why is it illegal on the federal level? It should not be. It should not be in the first place. But that's what they use, of course, to try and get basically get their stuff. And in other cases, throw people in jail into for-profit prisons so that these prison corporations can make more money. This is a giant money-making scam by the government. And unfortunately, we have an attorney general who continues to push this and who continues to push the drug war. So I don't see it ending anytime soon, unfortunately. But perhaps one day we can actually get a government and an attorney general who's going to fight against this. And that day cannot come soon enough. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.